It's a hazy sunset for us on this August 5th, 8:05. Appreciate you folks joining us wherever you might be tuning in to the Wave News Extra live stream here on Wave Now and on social media. Happy that you're joining us at this midpoint of the week and that you're staying as cool as possible given, hey, we're talking summertime mugginess and heat, 86 degrees as the sun is setting. Talking about the haze, of course, Kevin Harned will kind of explain where on the national map the wildfires up in the Pacific Northwest might be playing that role. But of course, you leave that to the experts for Kevin to kind of dissect that tonight at 11. We're going to catch you up on the stories we've been following over the course of today. We're going to begin with perhaps the big one coming from a very eventful press conference, but one key story and perspective here from Louisville Metro Police Chief Paul Humphrey. We'll begin with this.
We have disparate impacts in education. We have different impacts in economic situations and home ownership. And we have disparate impacts when it comes to crime victimization.
So there is part of Humphrey's responses, explanations in the press conference today about the recent media reporting that's highlighting the disparity that was collected by data in LMPD about traffic stops and searches among black drivers and then respectively white drivers in Louisville, the comparison there. It's drawn now, of course, we've followed up on the publicly stated criticisms and calls, especially from Louisville's Inspector General to try to reform the department. It's all based on this timeline of a 2025 study of data points commissioned by LMPD. They wanted to analyze racial disparities in stops and searches. The OIG, in part of the statement, even going as far as to accuse LMPD of trying to keep what was, concluded on in the report hidden. So this was the task for reporting that our Wave News troubleshooter, Alina Noakes, wanted to dig into a little further today. Part of that, hearing from Chief Humphrey himself refuting that particular claim about hiding the numbers. But further in, you'll hear in Alina's report, essentially in parts of this, it's the chief saying that he knows disparity has been an issue for some time. That's one of the reasons they wanted to commission the study, and that he sort of took issue with the way the data was released without context. They wanted to offer what they could today, and pointing out it's not just in the traffic stops and searches where that disparity exists. Here is Alina's report, and I'll see if I can start it from the very beginning to tee you all up.
Going to be a disparity in stops, plain and simple. There's a disparity in crime, and it would be improper of us to act like we police every problem the same way.
That's LMPD Chief Paul Humphrey Wednesday when asked how the department will stop disparity policing in traffic stops and searches. In 2025, LMPD commissioned a study with a third party called Sigma Squared, asking them to look at racial gaps in how the agency handles stops and searches. The study looked at roughly 37,000 stops in 2025, resulting in about 4,600 searches. Overall, it found black drivers are searched more than twice as often as white drivers. When accounting for drivers under similar factors like age and reason for the stop, the number shrinks to 66% more often. But when compared to white drivers stopped and searched, black drivers are 11% less likely to have contraband at all.
That is really where I want to make sure that we put our focus is how are we behaving not only pre-stop and making sure that we are following the data, making sure we are treating people the right way.
But the chief's frank response points to the gap in victimization in other areas of crime.
We have to focus our efforts on making sure that we protect black people and keep black people alive.
While Louisville shooting rates continue to decline, approaching pre-COVID era numbers once again, the racial gap remains the same. Of the total homicides between 2016 and 2025 at nearly 1,700, black people make up between 70 to 80% of victims each year. During that same period, 647, or more than 1/3 of all cases, remain open. One of those cases, Rhodesia Williams, shot and killed almost a year ago, walking her little girl to the school bus stop. On Wednesday, Chief Humphrey with another call for information.
There's someone who is the key to bringing that family justice, and that little girl, that family, they deserve that closure.
And so you hear the chief and part of the story kind of going through, and Lena's added much more of those quotes and other kinds of data points and context comments you'll find on her report on wave3.com. But she goes on to sort of add in the report what there seems to be underscored right now is a larger lack of trust, as leaders explain it, between LMPD and the Black community. And there is a point where in the press conference and exchange of questions and answers with the reporters that the chief said he is glad he and the inspector general's office agree on that much. We know at some point there was a Justice Department consent decree that was approved. It was scrapped in the turnover from the Biden administration to the Trump administration. And the city's local version, the community commitment, has been held up in council for months. Now, as that is all playing out, the NAACP's Louisville branch is also asking for these internal reforms. In their own statement, they were talking about wanting better transparency and accountability. Those are the words that branch president Dr. Raymond Burse used. And he described even how, in his opinion, LMPD has shown resistance to the OIG and its recommendations. And Burse even calling Chief Humphrey's response to the findings too simplistic and not addressing root causes of over-policing. So here is Raymond Burse's response.
The data and the information speaks for itself. No matter how the chief tries to spin it or the mayor tries to spin it, the reality is that policing in Louisville and Jefferson County has an adverse impact on Black folks.
So moving forward, Burse is saying he wants LMPD to understand that they are working with and not necessarily leading the control of that conversation to a solution in the community, that the mindset to work with collaboratively is what will help sort of foster that trust that he feels it's lacking specifically right there. All right, more to check in on, but I'm just going to change around some videos, and some of it it's different kinds of stories we want to catch you up on, folks. It is 8:12, and sun's still out for these folks out on our interstates. Looking like this traffic might be 64, and this is where I want to make sure I double check our Trimark networks. In this case, I believe it is one of our Trimark cameras. So let's take a quick look and see where exactly this location is. I believe this is I-65 at Fern Valley Road. Like to see there's no crashes, no cars stalled out, nothing on the shoulders that is impeding anybody going about the rest of their day, which is always very nice to see. And I want to wish that for drivers, wherever you might be going out, especially now in Indiana, where this has been sort of a condition. It's not the permanent thing because it's a suspension of the state gas tax, and it's been the case for most of the summer. But today, we learned from Governor Mike Braun putting out in an official sort of release and statement that he's extending this gas tax suspension statewide for another month, calling it an energy emergency. And because he makes that an official declaration, he can grant the extension. He alluded to ongoing issues with the war in Iran. Oil and gas prices are rising, of course, at a state level, but that's in the general market in the U.S. and worldwide. The current gas tax suspension is ending tomorrow at midnight, but once that's over, this new declared energy emergency would start, effectively keeping the suspension in place. Braun says he'll reevaluate the situation again by September 5th. To the top of my mind, what it might be as far as extensions and the appetite for an extension on the Kentucky side of things from the Beshear administration. I'm not recalling that, but something we'll look into for tonight on Wave News at 11. And as we'll take a quick break to reset and share some more stories, one of those is coming from our partners elsewhere in the Bluegrass State, and it's obviously caught the attention of the federal government, of the administration, and a story that was probably extremely harrowing for a patient and a family, and sort of highlighting where the failures were in the process along the way for an organ donation. So we'll touch on that and much more after we take a quick commercial break. Here in the Wave Now studio, you're watching Wave News Extra. Sun's still setting deeper right behind the Louisville downtown skyline, thanks to our view from our SkyTrack camera. And, these temperatures, we get it. It's summertime, as is per usual in this part of the Ohio Valley. So we'll keep touching on how the temperatures might or might not be changing and our rain chances as we get closer to the weekend, something we can all look forward to there. Appreciate you guys joining us as we stream live in the Wave Now studio from wherever you might be watching, might be at home after a long day of work, or maybe, having picked up the kids from school already, or just going about your day-to-day lives, catching up with us on your streaming apps, on your TVs, or on social media. This next story is an update from our partners out in Lexington. It's where the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. confirmed they're decertifying a organ donation group, Network of Hope, for a story that eventually made headlines. It was very deeply reported. Secretary Kennedy confirming that they were decertifying a Network of Hope on UK's campus this afternoon, which is where our partners in Lexington reporter Maggie Rickerby was there. The key name to remember is the story of TJ Hoover and his family, and sort of how they thought something felt wrong or off in in a doctor's office in a clinical context at a very crucial point. And eventually this all sort of spilled out into public reporting. So here is the update from Lexington.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and HRSA Administrator Tom Ingalls took to the podium on UK's campus. Kennedy said federal investigators found serious deficiencies in the program. According to Kennedy, reviewers found deficiencies in nearly 30% of cases.
When an organization entrusted with the gift of life repeatedly puts patients at risk, the federal government has the duty to act, and that's why we're acting today.
Ingalls said patients served by the Network of Hope will still receive the care they need.
That will not stop. HRSA and CMS will continually closely monitoring the organization.
Also present at today's news conference was TJ Hoover and his sister, Donna Rohrer. In 2021, Hoover was admitted to Richmond's Baptist Health Hospital. He was experiencing cardiac arrest and deemed code blue. That next day, Hoover's family decided to remove him from life support. His family then discovered he was an organ donor. While he was on the table for an organ harvesting procedure, his family says doctors told them TJ Hoover started showing signs of life, then woke up. That case helped lead to investigations into the organization now called Network for Hope.
That was Maggie Rickerby's quick update there, and we should learn a little bit more and whatever they're able to make sure we can exchange between our newsrooms on not just Hoover's story, which of course has been also well documented, but the fallout since, what the next steps may or may not be. You heard the federal administrators there talking about not compromising folks who are already on an organ wait list to receive the care that they do need. In a statement, though, Network for Hope says it, quote, strongly disagrees with Secretary Kennedy's decision to decertify the organization. Quote, they will appeal this decision. They're also claiming under HRSA oversight, organ donation went down for the first time in 14 years. So they're claiming there's been a drop in donations for the available pool of people and patients who would need this kind of support. All right, we've got some video playing here. This has more of, fingerprints, ripple effects, if you will, for a pretty important industry that has deep Kentucky roots. It's horse racing. But this is happening in another U.S. state. Two major changes to what's been a century-plus history of Triple Crown horse racing. You've got the leg, that's the Kentucky Derby, the Belmont, and the Preakness Stakes. But the two changes to consider in our reporting we have. One, the Preakness Stakes, it's moving to a Sunday. Two, it's going to happen 3 weeks and a day after the Kentucky Derby runs. Maryland Governor Wes Moore with the Maryland Jockey Club. Maryland, of course, now taking sort of ownership of the properties and everything involved with intellectual properties themselves, confirming this news to change the Preakness run with an announcement today. Normally, traditionally, the Preakness ran 2 weeks after the Derby. But remember, this year's Derby winner, Golden Tempo, its team, Cherie DeVaux, sat out the Preakness because of a tight timeline, and they felt the horse just would not perform well with the little bit of rest they thought it was going to get. Governor Moore was hoping the extra week will allow more Derby teams to compete in Baltimore.
It means that more people will watch and witness the greatest show in the Mid-Atlantic. and continue to see Maryland on the world stage, exactly where Maryland belongs. But these changes are about more than just television and timing. They also continue to demonstrate what happens and what Maryland can do when Maryland controls what happens next.
And you hear the reference there, Maryland controlling whatever those contracts or deals would be as a state. The change also brings a media rights extension with NBC Sports to broadcast the race through 2032 and the confirmation of a $500 million rebuild of the home site there, the Pimlico Race Course. To other updates closer to home, at least within Wave Country and the partnership among U.S. Marshals this time, because Marshals in Louisville did arrest this man whose mugshot you see here. He's accused of attempted murder in Richmond, Kentucky. And this was in collaboration with Western District Marshals, Eastern District Marshals in Kentucky to arrest 32-year-old Tyler Mack, who police say was wanted as an accomplice to a home invasion back in May. So here are some of the early police report details. But police, on one hand, accused Mack of taking a homeowner's adult kids upstairs to the second floor of the house at gunpoint, hitting one of them in the head with a pistol. Court documents then claim Max fired 6 shots at someone trying to run away. One of the bullets hit that victim in the right arm. Max charges include, again, attempted murder, but there's first-degree burglary, first-degree attempted robbery, and kidnapping. In this update, because over the course of the summer, when it comes to data centers and different forums for experts, public leaders to either gauge how a community is feeling or offer their insight, what their own questions are. What we know now for this week is a pretty significant matter of business because Metro Council is going to have to decide if it wants to pass a temporary pause on building any more new data centers in Jefferson County. At the same time, we know some people are still wondering how the data center being built actively on Campground Road did get approved so quickly. So some points here are from today's latest U of L, Scholastic webinar. So these are, experts, faculty tied to the school. A law professor highlighted how permitting is a key piece of the development process. Cities and counties, a lot of them don't have specific rules for how or why or what sort of corrals data centers as they're being built. A company can come in and propose to build one. The way they can get it approved is through a conditional use permit. Essentially, builders have to go before local leaders, show their plans, stake their claim as to why they're entitled to get the permit to build a center. In Louisville, that has to happen with a public hearing and during a public hearing. And so you're seeing the subject matter there displayed on the slideshow, data center permitting in the webinar session today. The guy's name is Tony Arnold. He highlighted leaders are not just looking for public input. They themselves want to decide if a company can prove it's justified in getting a permit. So Arnold says, as this is a developing story, something we're going to continue to check in on. But he's encouraging average folks, the public, to stay informed on what city leaders are talking about and see what they have to say about any future projects being considered.
Before data centers became a big thing, there were people warning that this was coming along, and we weren't proactive about it, and now we're being reactive about it. Well, what are the next big land uses that are coming along that we also need to be thinking about that are going to impact communities or maybe not well defined in our zoning codes or uncertain or problematic or whatnot?
For anybody who would be interested, there is another U of L webinar on data centers happening. It seems it's as a recurring sort of educational updating opportunity there. But this one is coming up on Wednesday, August 19th. Another quick check from our Trimark network. Still, I've got this camera zoomed in on 65 at Fern Valley Road, is it? Sometimes I'm trying to make sense of it all. Yes, Fern Valley Road. Always want to double check that as you're going about and wanting to check on everything that's going on. There's we go. Just got to have all the parameters ready there. We're going to take a quick break, folks. Be right back with the last round of stories. The theme you're going to notice is more back to school because tomorrow it's when not necessarily the biggest of days, but just the most people, the most kids, the most parents, bus drivers, teachers, and everybody in between moving to start their first academic year, 2026-2027, within JCPS. So we'll be right back with more back-to-school glimpses from Wave Country next here on Wave News Extra, live in the Wave Now studio. Well, at this point, the clouds there with the haze and the striping kind of hiding the sun for us, 8:28 on our Wednesday evening, August 5th. I hope everybody's been having, a good end to the Wednesday so far. For those who've already started the school year, hope it's also been a successful either first day or second day because you just want to be able to carry that momentum as best as you can. Looking ahead to tomorrow, we're talking again the greatest number of people, kids, adults, parents, guardians, teachers, bus drivers, everything in between moving. 96,000 kids. It's one more good night's sleep. And then tomorrow, it's time to begin the 2026-27 school year at JCPS. Our reporting team wants to keep helping parents out there, maybe joining us in the live stream. And I'd love to sort of hear what you all are going to, what's it called? I lost my train of thought. Any last minute thoughts you all had for preparing for the kids, new changes coming through JCPS, just, those sort of nagging bits of stressors, just to make sure you can keep that calm for your kids as maybe they're dealing with some anxieties. Nonetheless, this is what our Fernando Garcia Francescini wanted to put together and know where you can find those resources on transportation, understand there's new rules on classroom discipline, parents. So as he phrases it, you have a lot on your mind right now, but he wanted to go touch on 3 things to try to have that good momentum for a safe and successful start to the school year.
If you're looking to save time and avoid stress, download the My Ride K-12 app. The new app allows you to track your student's bus in real time, allowing you to better plan your day.
That's a good idea. I like that. I will be participating in that.
Some parents like Vontasia Woods are really excited about the new app, especially for the first couple of days of school.
I think last year, on the first day, my son didn't get home till almost 7:30.
As a reminder, JCPS leaders say your kids will probably be dropped off at the bus stop later than normal those first couple of days. So the goal is to have all bus riders home by 7 p.m. Once you're on the road, be mindful of new traffic laws, particularly one that now requires drivers on 4-lane roads to stop for a school bus that has its red lights flashing and stop arm on the other side of the road. The exception is 4-lane roads with an existing raised barrier or unpaved median.
So when that stop sign is out and that arm is out, be aware of kids, and JCPS is going to be following up on that when there are issues.
JCPS will now also take stronger action inside the classroom. A new law now requires a 1-year expulsion for any student in grades 6 through 12 who is found to have either intentionally caused or attempted to cause physical injury to a school employee or school property. According to the law, school employees must also report those incidents to police immediately. Those who don't could face criminal penalties.
All important things to remember, and we thank Fernando for that update. I'll see if I can set the video up again just to do a quick little tie this up in a neat little bow. Because as a reminder, if you wanted to read any of this for yourself, just scrolling through your phone or your device, whatever you've got, there's an easy, handy website apparently JCPS has set up. It's called JCPS, so all the letters together, First Day, FIRSTDAY.com. So it's meant to be, perhaps if they can't answer the specific questions there, maybe with FAQs, you could find the links to the specific resources. We know, for example, with transportation, maybe you want to talk to a real live person on the other end of the phone. Tonight, the 485 ride hotline, it's closed. They close, it was at 6 tonight. But tomorrow, and then through the beginning first full week of JCPS's first week of the new school year, the hotline is going to open tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. They'll have call takers there through 7 p.m. tomorrow, Friday, through the rest of the work week and the school week, Monday through Friday. They're not going to be open on weekends. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully it is a good day for everybody out there, and just give each other a little grace for sure. So let's see, Star Walker Fox commenting there on YouTube, and then we've got Angela there as well. All right, sometimes it's hard to read the comments. I'm going to get back to you guys. Promise I'll make sure to read them out a little better there. Let's see, we've got more stories. I was talking about other kinds of perspective on back to school around not just Wave Country, it's really all of Kentucky, because this is that time of year. So we wanted to stop by Bullitt County, where BCPS had this grand opening for their Heart's House, and Heart has an acronym. It is an acronym. It starts for Homeless Education Assistance Resource Team. So this is a team supporting Bullitt County students, maybe currently just going through a rough time with unstable housing, maybe just they don't have a home. It is part of BCPS's programs serving roughly 500 kids across the district each year, providing the kids in question food, clothes, a comfortable environment that feels like something stable that they can either relax or focus on their studies or just simply unwind. And it's also about giving the kids support in other areas outside of academics, just things that matter in day-to-day life as well.
Being able to get help with, tutoring and extra out-of-school activities and transportation to and from school, those things that a lot of our families take for granted, that our homeless community and our homeless families struggle with daily. And so this is a program that connects them with resources within the community to ensure that we're closing all the gaps that we can possibly close.
On this front, and let's see, just trying to read up on more info there. What they wanted to clarify, the BCPS administrative leaders, was Heart House is not a shelter per se. They are not able to have students or families stay there at this physical house overnight. What they are talking about, project leaders, is one of their next goals is to bring a first of its kind homeless shelter to Bullitt County, maybe answer that need. All right, maybe this gives me a little time to read the YouTube and Facebook comments. So thanks to Angela and Star Walker Fox and a lot of people joining us on the social media, because this is where we can interact as the stories I'm going through bit by bit are unfolding, and you probably all have thoughts because there's stories that matter to you. So I very much understand that. And perhaps Star Walker's question about maybe the spending on the app. I'm not sure. Maybe that's a good inquiry to put out there, what having that contract looks like. if I remember, this is me spitballing on the rough numbers JCPS is saying for bus drivers, we're talking around 700, and perhaps there's an overflow there to give or take if there's substitutes that need to be called in for someone who might take off. What the max capacity is or the max best staffing is, I'm not sure of that number there. And then Angela perhaps asking about staff and children protected, maybe children also within these schools. Not sure if then that follows into teachers having to, submit the reports and call police ASAP about what might happen to kids with the bullying rules if it verges into, criminal territory. Also worth considering. So it's not a bad thing to keep in mind. I just know that was sort of the new change made at a state legislature level to protect teachers and the data they were talking about, the kind of metrics of increased reports of violence. What data or studies there might be existing about kids on kids sort of, perhaps harming each other, also worth considering there. All legit questions. So thanks for chiming in on those at the same time, guys. So this is good for us to keep in mind as we move forward the rest of the school year. What we're looking at right now with the video is inside Clarksville Community Schools. Today they wrapped up their first day, coming back for day number 2. Indiana, perhaps the most noticeable change if you're a child is the bell-to-bell cell phone ban. You got to keep those stored away in lockers or bags from the first bell till the day is dismissed and done. This was a check-in at Clarksville Middle, and they are showing off some renovations. Here is one of their admins, I believe it's the principal, talking about setting up a through line for the year about belonging. And here's what she had to say.
We're going to be committed to kindness across our district. Specifically in this building, our theme is You Belong Here. And so we're really going to be intentional with the initiative practices and activities that we do for the kids. And we really want to just instill with them being kind humans and growing into great people and, kind of letting that trickle out to our community.
And so students at Clarksville Middle are going to notice some of the newer renovations. There's new furniture, new flooring, new paint. They also did get $100,000 as a school and within the district for them to be able to buy new instruments for any kid who did want to participate in band. Let's see if this might be a different story we've got up. Before I forget, make sure if you start early mornings, maybe you all are early birds out there and you'll clock out once the stream is over. I joke and say I know there's probably more in the night that you all got to take care of, but unwinding. Still, Wave News Sunrise wants to have you covered. The Sunrise team is going to be out live at the JCPS bus compound. Check on how things are looking as the day starts. The all-important bus stop forecast from Tawana Andrew. She's going to have all of that to consider. This last story takes us to Floyd County, Kentucky. And for families, there's going to be a brand new resource to help them, literally wash some, those small worries to, make sure that their own kids can stay healthy and clean. This is a nonprofit who wanted to make sure there was a washer and dryer inside every county school. If a struggling family just needed someplace to wash those clothes, they could come do so. A local pet store owner volunteers with the Kent Rose Foundation out there. They brought attention to this need when she noticed there were many kids in the county cycling through a very limited number of outfits through the school year. So she wanted to raise money, start a fundraiser. They've purchased 6 sets of washer dryers to be in schools in Floyd County. And with those available, families now have better access to a basic utility they might not otherwise have at home. Here is Kent Rose Community Outreach Coordinator Sheena Maynard.
We have children that have 3 or 4 outfits max. And that's what they have to wear to school, whether that's clean or dirty. This impact could go on for years. Why wouldn't we do that? And why wouldn't we aim to achieve such a life changer, a game changer for kids? A basic human necessity that can be solved in an entire county, hundreds of children, years to come.
So the nonprofit had a goal raising almost $12,000, $11,700 to buy and place all these laundry sets in all 12 Floyd County schools. They're still actively working on that. You can read a little bit more about that on the Kent Rose Foundation website. So that's something to keep adding, as we'll, always update our back to school guide, which of course you see is the top story we've got there on the wave3.com homepage. It's Kentucky, of course, in Wave Country, further around the Bluegrass State, Indiana school districts that we serve, even colleges, because sometimes, yes, hey, we forget fall semesters apply to 18 and up, 18 and older students out there furthering their education. But nonetheless, here on the wave3.com homepage, folks, always tell you it's the one-stop shop. If we've got updates to breaking news, the big stories we're working on, everything that's in our backyard, or Wave Originals, troubleshooters, investigation updates, the storm tracking teams, latest forecasts, anything and everything we've got going on, it lives here. And then as we do that and we upload it, we also send it to your phone through those alerts on the Wave News app and the Wave Weather app. That's going to do it for me tonight here in the Wave Now studio. Hope you join us for the newscast at 11. Again, Kevin Harnett going to walk us through how our rain chances are going to be increasing bit by bit as we go through the weekend, what that has in store for us next week, and a bit of a wetter pattern. In the news front, hope you join us because our Julie Richardson is going to show her visit to Jeffersonville Police and how through a federal government grant, they've brought in a brand new simulator to modernize, kind of bring up all their patrol officers up to speed on ways they can really hone in on skills when they're dealing with real life emergencies, and what this technology hopefully can do as a then net benefit for the community. We're going to take you outside one last time to our downtown SkyTrack camera. The sun barely shining, more blue than oranges and yellows out there in the distance. Hope everybody's safe out there as we wind down our Wednesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow night, 8:05 in the Wave Now studio. Until then, take care, folks. We'll see you soon.